Let's talk about that Bloodline War Games match. I'm Will, that's Brandon, we are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. As always, let's cheers, talk about some wrestling.
Yeah, you like that? We talked a little bit about at least the wish list of Bloodline stuff. I mean, the Bloodline stuff's been years and years and years at this point. So we're finally getting something here. We're finally getting that War Games match. We're finally getting to see all the turmoil here and there. So let's get into it. Let's see what we want, what you guys want.
Bloodline War Games is surrounded in questions. They're going after random guys, Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, and the taping already happened, so some people already know what's going on there. We try to keep it spoiler-free. We will keep it spoiler-free, but there's just so much questions going into this match that we just wanted to talk about them. Yeah. So we're just going to go question by question. We're going to give our answers on it, talking about this Bloodline War Games match that's happening here at Survivor Series very shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could do videos on videos on videos on video.
Bloodline,
I mean, it's
more.
it's just Bloodline everywhere, and it deserves at least a standalone here of what we want to see.
First one that I want to talk about, like I said, if you're watching this and it comes out and Raw is tonight or Raw is whenever it is, and you might have already seen the taping. And if you did, sorry, we didn't see it. We try to keep it and watch it as we go. But one thing that we know for sure is they are actively searching for fifth members. And that begs the question, who would we choose as a fifth member for each team?
Yeah. This is, I guess I really like the way they did this. I really like the way, I mentioned in the Raw review, how like Sami went and asked somebody, and then Jay was seen talking backstage to Ray, and then you have Jimmy asking somebody. I really like that element. Now, if it were up to me in terms of who you ask, I would just ask nobody. I feel like that's maybe a controversial answer, or maybe that's not the right answer. I really wish it was just 4v4.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I feel like that just makes the most sense. Now, if you had to sit here and ask me who I would... well, as much as I'd hate to say it, I feel like if you are the original Bloodline, you're probably going to ask Cody Rhodes. I just feel like not only does Cody Rhodes have a beef with them, I feel like him and Jay were once tag champions. He doesn't have any problem with Sami. In fact, he wishes Sami and beat Gunther for Crown Jewel. He wished they could have like a gentleman's match together. So he at least doesn't have a problem with the original Bloodline, at least all of them. I feel like he still respects Roman. Jimmy and him, I feel like, could get along. And then if you're looking at the other side, I guess kind of de facto, you're probably going with Kevin Owens. Not only... he has issue with the original Bloodline. He has issue with Cody Rhodes right now. It all kind of makes sense now. Like I said, is that something I'd want to see? No. I just want it to 4v4. But if you're putting me in a bind and you're saying pick a member, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, you stole my answer to this question. I was just going to take the cop out and say, well, I would pick nobody. This should have been a 4v4 match. And whoever they do pick, I'm sure it'll be fun. Whoever they pick, and already the people that they've talked to, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Rey Mysterio, those three would put on a good show in the match, right? They would all be awesome. Seth Rollins is obviously one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Braun Breaker in a freaking cell with Jacob Fatu. Yeah. I mean, that stuff on paper sounds fun, but this is the Bloodline, man. This is Civil War. This is family business. That's been the whole thing of why Roman didn't want Sami in here, why Jimmy still is not very happy with Sami, because he's not blood. So what is the point of you really going to stick to the rules on this one, WWE? This is a Bloodline match. They break the rules every time they're in the ring together. And this is the rule that you want to stick with, a fifth? So I'm just going to flat out say it. This should have been 4v4. Still looking forward to it. It'll still be great. But man, this should have been 4v4.
Sometimes we talk about things of like, I wish I would have done it this way. I wish this would have happened. Stuff like that. Or I wish, take your pick. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of wrestling stories in the history of wrestling, and this one needs to just be this because it is just Bloodline. I don't need the extra stuff. Because like the Seth and Roman stuff, as people have maybe already hinted at, like you said, we haven't seen the spoilers. We saw them both sides talk to Seth on this past Raw. Like, I don't need that.
Yeah,
you can do that at a different time. I don't need that right now. You're overcomplicating things for me.
The Seth story. The Seth and Roman makeup needs to be a 5-month story in itself. That's one of the biggest through lines in wrestling history at this point. I mean, that's literally been a 15-year storyline. This can't be made up in a week. I don't care what happens in order for Seth to almost bend the knee and join the team. Like, that doesn't make any sense in this little amount of time. But
and I guess also real quick before we go on, if we talk about a fantasy pick, like I'm still picking Cody Rhodes to the original. The fantasy pick would be, I guess, The Rock. But I mean, let's be realistic. It's not going to happen. But storyline wise, they sit there and it's 5-on-4 and it's like, well, how do you even the odds if the final boss comes out? You know what I mean? Like, that would make sense at least more than some of the other stuff that people have hinted at or said.
Rock and Rikishi.
Yeah, sign me
Rock
up.
and Rikishi.
Yeah.
There you go. Stinkface to Jigga Fatu. Let's move it on. Let's do something a little bit more easy here. Survivor Series, you got everybody in the ring. It's going to be a big one. Will this finally be the day that Paul Heyman returns?
I think it needs to be.
Really?
I don't know when else you would do it, admittedly. He doesn't need to be in like any sort of big capacity, but maybe you have Bloodline 2.0 just absolutely, utterly destroying the original Bloodline, and they're looking for some sort of spark or something, and maybe Bloodline 2.0 is just beating the hell out of the original Bloodline, and they're just in the ring, just destroying them. You get that distraction, you get the ladies and gentlemen. I feel like that's, injects it into your veins. The fans there love it, and then the original Bloodline can be like, okay, that's our wise man. He's back. Let's get after it.
Yeah, I think what needs to happen is exactly that. Bloodline 2.0 needs to be beating the hell out of OG Bloodline, and it'd be one of those moments where it finally looks like Roman is starting to doubt Roman. And then imagine the ladies and gentlemen hits, and then he starts just hyping Roman up. You're my tribal chief and the conqueror and all this stuff. It would be absolutely insane. But no matter when he comes back, whether it be Survivor Series or whenever else, I'm with you. It should be Survivor Series. That, ladies and gentlemen, is going to hit like nothing has ever hit before.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be up there with like the Undertaker type stuff. You know what I mean? Well, just give Paul Heyman the Undertaker entrance. Just have the lights go out.
Paul Heyman's in the middle of the ring. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Big one here.
Come.
So, War Games match, how does it work? It works where one guy gets pinned, he's out, right? No. It's one pin win, right?
Yeah,
one pin
but they're
win
all
here.
intervals.
Correct. They come in intervals. Here's my thing. Who do you pin in this match? If Bloodline wins, who do they pin? If Bloodline 2.0 wins, who do they pin? Because you already had Bloodline 2.0 get the pin over Roman.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like that needs to be equaled out. And then you have Bloodline OG pin Solo, right?
I mean, if you're picking OG Bloodline, like who do they pin? I would say probably Solo to even it out. My pick probably wouldn't be that, though, for OG. My pick would be just Tongaloa.
Really?
Because he's the easier one. Why not? But in terms of storyline-wise, Solo taking the pin would make much more sense. Now, if you are the Bloodline 2.0, I think this is where it gets interesting. I think this is the juicier side. I think this is the more driven side. I think this is a very easy answer on if you're Bloodline 2.0, who do you pin? You pin Jey Uso.
Yeah.
You have Roman and him at odds. They're supposed to be equals. Well, then, I mean, you put them on an equal level, equal playing field.
Well, say buddy stuff works, right? We don't get any crazy twist and turn. You could also have him pin Sami. And then you have very much Roman gets pissed at that point, right? Like, I didn't want you in this match. Jimmy didn't want you in this match. Jay, you've told me week in, week out to just give this clown a chance. And now we lose another match because he gets pinned. I feel like that would just be that could write itself as well.
Yeah, I think if you look at the Bloodline 2.0, who could they pin? I think there's two. It's 50-50. You're not pinning Roman or Jimmy.
Okay.
You're either going to pin, I mean, I guess 50-50 doesn't make sense percentage-wise because there's supposed to be 5 members. But this side, it's either going to be Jay or Sami.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Jimmy and Roman are off limits.
See, to me,
there is zero chance that they get pinned.
I say Bloodline 2.0 wins, it's either Jay or Sami. And if Bloodline OG wins, I'm going to say they're going to pin Solo so that you can have the 1-1, right? Solo got pinned, Roman got pinned. And now you can finally maybe lead up to a Roman Solo match after all this time. Yeah. And you can say, well, now we're doing the Tribal Chief match, right? And you can have that at Rumble or whatever it may be.
That's probably the more likely thing for OG Bloodline.
Yeah.
I know I said Tongaloa. I mean, If I was on the original Bloodline, I'd be like, let's target that guy. That's the weak link. But storyline wise, yeah, Solo.
If you're the OG Bloodline, you should just see if Tama or Tonga Loa starts the match, and then just have Roman start the match with him, and then just have Roman kill him.
I don't know why we don't do that. Just send Roman out there first.
Go
start with your strongest leg forward. You know.
Speaking of Sami Zayn, though, this is the big one. So it's betrayal or redemption, right? That's what that's what is on everybody's mind when it comes to Sami Zayn. Is this man going to turn? Is he going to redeem himself? And the OG Bloodline is truly back together, especially if we get a Paul Heyman go. So does Sami Zayn turn heel here or not?
Well, you just asked me who they should pin, and I said, well, for me, it was easy. It's Jey Uso. I didn't include Sami Zayn because I agree. I think he's turning.
Oh.
You had kind of put this idea out there of him being the Bloodline 2.0 wise man, for lack of a better term. It just seems so much better. It seems so, I shouldn't even say better. It just brings me so much more intrigue and interest. If Sammy turns on the OG Bloodline, Jay's the one there. Listen to Sammy. Listen to Sammy. Listen to Sammy. I'm here fighting for Sammy. I'm fighting for Sammy. Please hear him out. And then you get a haluva kick to Jay by Sammy. Kind of like what we've seen, like Jacob Fatu kind of does the dirty work for Solo and Solo gets the pin. Why not have Sami Zayn do the dirty work and then Solo get the pin that way?
I mean, I just want Sami Zayn as the wise man, so I'm going to say, he's turning. Like, ever since that thought went into my head, I just think that would be absolute money. I have this picture in my head of Sami Zayn, like, haluva kicking Roman, haluva kicking Jay, and then Solo gets the pin, and Sammy jokingly, but, like, seriously at the same time, watches Fatu do this, and then Sammy does this as well behind Solo as Survivor Series goes off air. That's
their new thing. They all just do it.
Yeah, they all do it. A Sami Zayn wise man run with Solo could be one of the most interesting things in all of wrestling. It would be absolutely incredible. Will it happen? Odds are probably at a hell no at this point, because if that was going to happen, it was probably going to happen at Crown Jewel. So if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on Sami Zayn doing it at Survivor Series. I really wouldn't at this point, because they just put too much effort into the reconciliation of him in order to.
Yeah, I mean, the moment you put that into my head, like you said, it's been in my head.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to let it go. So, I mean, realistically, what's probably going to happen? He probably costs OG Bloodline, right? He probably takes the pin some way, somehow. But God, it would add so much more intrigue, because I think we would both agree, and I think most people would agree, the story's not over at Survivor Series.
No.
We think it's going to continue and continue and continue. So what better way to kind of pivot, give it some more legs, give it another layer than to do that?
Yeah. I mean, do it, please. Mm-hmm. We got a couple more here. I do want to talk about one thing that's building. It seems to be building on every show, is this little tension between Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. Right? Jay, a couple weeks ago, when Jay decided to join the Bloodline again, when he said okay to Roman, he made it very clear to Roman that I am not your lassie. I'm not your sidekick anymore. I am your equal. I am your equal. When Roman comes out, Jey Uso gets his own entrance music, right? Like Roman doesn't get the pose. Roman doesn't get the pose. Jay gets the yeet, right? So will that cost them here? Well, Jay and Roman and their egos and their wanting of being the tribal chiefs, kinda. I mean, Jay doesn't want to be a tribal chief, but will their egos of superiority kind of get in the way and cost him this match?
Yeah, I know. I just said I think Sami Zayn inevitably cost him the match some way, shape, or form somehow. But this has to happen. Something. Maybe it doesn't cost him the match, but maybe they have the upper hand and then they lose the upper hand, and then that leads to the final stuff. Maybe you have Roman saying, excuse me, he needs to, he's like, I'm going to finish this guy. I'm going to stack him. I'm going to pin him. Like, you know, how Roman talks, he's going to hit a spear or a Superman punch. And Jay's like, no. I got this. This is my turn. And maybe he goes for a spear and maybe he doesn't hit it, or maybe he goes for his splash. He doesn't hit it. I feel like some way, shape, or form, you're starting to see it to where they're trying to be equals, but also in the same time that I know Jay continues to say, I want to be equal. I want to be equal. I want to be equal. Human nature feels like I got to get a little bit above for us to be equal because for so long I was so below. I feel like you have to really kind of play into that here to really drive that point home.
I think this is going to be the domino that leads to a Sami Zayn turn during the match. What I think is going to happen is I do think there's going to be big ego tension between Jay and Roman. They're going to end up kind of getting into a shoving match, right? And Sami is truly there for Jay. I think Sami does truly have Jay's back, but eventually I think Roman's going to put his hands on Jay in one way, shape, or form, and that's going to lead to Sami with a haluva kick to Roman. Jimmy going to be pissed at Sami. They're going to get into a scuffle. Sami going to have to take care of that, and then you sit there as Sami, and you look at it with Sami, and you're like, well, 66% of these guys hate me. Why am I a part of their group? I hate that guy too. And then maybe you have Jay get mad at him as well. But I do think that the last domino that's going to happen in the Bloodline drama is going to be the breaking of like Jay and Roman just not being able to handle their egos together.
Yeah, and I said like it's almost human nature. Like you were so far, below him, but now you kind of would be equal. But you got to kind of get that extra step. I mean, it's so good when they add the real life stuff and the real life like. Yeah, you know what? I can see why this happens because this is how I would feel.
Let me get my merch sale numbers,
bro.
Exactly. My merch sale.
Roman, you ever been number one while
My freaking Yeet shirt's basically like a John Cena shirt. They change the color every month just to sell some more of them.
I mean, all I'm gonna say is he's had better merch than Roman has.
I like the Yeet glasses. But that's bad. The head of the table shirt that Roman used to wear was.
Even the OTC is not terrible, but.
I like the OTC.
Roman historically has never really had great merch.
Yeah, that's fair. One more thing we'll end on.
Mm-hmm.
If Bloodline 2.0 does get the win over OG Bloodline at War Games, will you acknowledge Solo Sikoa as your tribal chief?
I mean, it's depending on who you ask now, he might already be acknowledged. I mean, I think Solo is... I mean, I don't want to say he's to the Roman Reigns level-esque of the 4-year run, but I mean, I kind of already acknowledge, I guess, how great Solo has become.
Yes.
I don't know if that answers your question, but to me, Solo has elevated his game so much while Roman has been out. He's kind of carried that. And originally we were like, yeah, God, this guy kind of sucks, doesn't he? And admittedly, there's points where it's like it wavers, but I would say I acknowledge how great Solo has become. Now, depending on what happens in this match, I think if it goes the way we kind of think or maybe hope that it will, I think it's going to be pretty easy to acknowledge him because at that point, it's a numbers game and there's still really some really strong dysfunction within the original Bloodline. It's like, hey, look, I got all my guys here. They're all fall in line just like they're supposed to do. But you over there, you have a tribe now, but they can't follow you. I think that's I could see Solo saying that right after.
Yeah. I'm going to echo exactly what you said. Now, Roman will always be my tribal chief, right? Because he's a tribal chief. That's who he is. But I will acknowledge the work that Solo has put in 2024. That man, wow. I mean, he went from after WrestleMania, everybody immediately jumping off the Bloodline story bandwagon. They're like, oh, this guy sucks. He can't do anything. To now, we're getting into December. We're going into 2025. Solo is hot. He has found his character. He is entertaining every time he's on the screen. Phenomenal in-ring storyteller. He's really making that Bloodline 2.0 feel like their own thing. I mean, they feel completely separate at this point. They feel dangerous. He feels dangerous. Hats off to Solo Sikoa. And while I will never probably call him my tribal chief, I'm going to say, damn, you've been a good Roman impersonator, man. You really have been. You did the job here. I acknowledge that.
Yeah, you've been a nice Roman wannabe, right?
Yeah,
that's what Seth called him. I mean, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, I would really... It says something that, like, yeah, they're the Bloodline 2.0, and I still take them seriously. Because usually those knockoff things, they're usually not that good. But you could take Bloodline 2.0, you could throw them, give them a whole new name, and I'd be like, yeah, this guy's amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That really kind of shows how great he stepped his game up. And on screen wise, I guess, you have him still able to let Fatu fall in line, or get Fatu to fall in line is probably how I should say it. Like, that in and of itself, I think needs to maybe be examined a little bit more, because it's like, look at the power Solo has. Fatu is a star on his own. Everybody sees the talent, right? You're like, how is Solo able to do that? What does he do? I think that eventually, maybe down the line, we get that. I feel like that would be interesting too.
I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, it just comes down to the simple fact that we love you, Solo. We love you, Solo. I love you, Solo. Anyway, the Bloodline stuff has been so freaking great, and there's so many stories that could happen, so many possibilities in this War Games match. We're looking forward to it. There's a lot of time before War Games, so a lot could change there as well. So we're looking forward to just all of it. Wrestling's fun. But follow us on all of our socials at COD WrestlePod, COD WrestlePod. Listen to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts at YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. If you want to come talk to us, we got a Discord. It's in our link tree next to all of our other socials. Come talk to us in our Discord. Comment on all of our stuff. Subscribe to our stuff. Share it with others. We absolutely love talking to you guys. That's the reason we do it. So until next time, I'm Will. That's Brandon. We are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. We will see you next time.